I used to work with a bunch of depressed eco-warriors, and despite all of their problems in life, this very real issue that they had, usually they weren't successful in the things that they wanted to be successful in. And despite all of that, we seem to spend hours talking about external factors, things like the economy, Trump, the environment, all of these things were the top of their mind instead of the one thing that they should have been focusing on. This one woman comes to mind, and honestly, she talked about Trump every 20 minutes or so in the conversations we had. This was despite the fact that her business, honestly, couldn't even get off the ground. She was failing, and that fact must have been confronting her on a day-to-day basis. Yet, whenever I tried to broach the subject of personal responsibility, she always came back to an external problem like Trump, like the environment, like the economy, instead of focusing on her. And I don't think this is just a left-wing thing either. I've seen it on the right too. I spent a year coaching this one guy who could not get past the fact that liberals were ruining his children. And look, if we take this criticism of Trump, obviously it's pretty fair. Like, I am no fan of the man. And in the environmental side too, I not only want to preserve our beautiful world, but I want my daughter to enjoy it in the same way that I have, to extract such joy from the natural beauty. But it really does start to confuse me how we spend so much time thinking about externals. But there's something you can learn in this too. In fact, I've noticed this pattern I see crop up time and time again. And that pattern is basically the more time someone spends talking about externals, about the environment, about Musk, Trump, the economy, the left, the right, systemic racism, whatever it is, the worse their business does. And not only that, the less happy, fulfilled, and meaningful their life feels. The thing that really does my head in is when people spend all their identity critiquing capitalism and saying how it's, quote, a cancer on the earth, yet they run a business or they're engaged with a business that operates in a capitalist environment. It does my head in. It's like saying you hate cricket, but then spending your life trying to become England's opening batsman. And this pattern that I've picked up is based on something called the locus of control. And stick with me here. It's a little bit technical, a little bit psychological. So your locus of control is where you believe your power lies, the power over your life. And we have either an external or an internal locus of control. And if you're loved and nurtured and parented properly, and you slightly win the genetic lottery too, you'll hopefully develop an internal locus of control, plus do a lot of right things in your own life too. You'll develop an internal locus of control. This is where you believe you have the power over the quality of your life. You can change things. You can do things that adapt your existence, that have meaningful change on your life and those around you too. When you hit challenges and you have an internal locus of control, you believe that you can overcome them. You can find your inner and outer resources and kind of pull them together to overcome. Like, it's obvious that this is such an essential thing for thriving in life. The opposite of this is an external locus of control. This is where you believe like the majority of the quality of your life is impacted by things external to you. So you blame God, fate, Musk, Trump, the left, the right, systemic racism, whatever it is, and you say that thing over there has the huge impact. That is the thing determining my life. Of course, these things do have an impact on you. You don't live in a vacuum, but it's about where the majority of the emphasis of your choices, your behavior, your thoughts, your quality of mind, where that resides. And from working with over 1,000 individuals and now a lot of high performers, it seems completely apparent to me, and also the science backs this up too, that your life is more likely to suck if you have an external locus of control. And that's true across health metrics, so depression, anxiety, and mental health, but also like cardiovascular disease and your recovery from that, but also your success too. How likely you are to thrive in business, in your relationships, in your health, in your performance, in your mentality, in the quality of your hobbies, your enjoyment, whether you thrive or not. is determined by your internal or external locus of control. The business owners that I work with, the ones that thrive, are the ones that take full personal responsibility for their lot in life. In fact, it's almost unreasonable how much responsibility they take. It reminds me of that. I think it's George Bernard Shaw who said something like, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world, the unreasonable man adapts the world to him. Therefore, the world is changed by unreasonable men. It may feel like I'm just shitting on people who have the poor luck to have an external locus of control, who is linked to depression, anxiety, and what I'm not doing is saying that those things don't exist. But what I am saying here is that my life changed radically when I learned to train an internal locus of control. I remember seeing all the scientific data come through, reading all the papers, and understanding that it was only my mind that could control this, that people who were more successful had an internal locus of control. The flip that I made, which the current scientific approach and psychological approach does not make, is that you can train this. If you look through the majority of the papers, what you'll find out is that they all say that this is a relatively stable personality trait. I completely disagree. They say that it changes throughout age, and maybe that's true, but I have gone from blaming all manners of things, from my parents to the political situation that I was in, to my luck, to my education, to my schooling, to the people that I grew up with, to my environment and my lack of support, to all manners of things. I've gone from blaming all that and having a business that was shit, and my relationship for some reason managed to survive all of that. But I've gone from having an external locus of control to scoring exceptionally highly on internal locus of control spectrums and continuums. This is because the change that I've made is realizing this is a trainable asset. You can train your locus of control, and therefore you can change and train your level of success. So to say it like this, I trained my mental fitness, and you too can put the sets and reps in.